do have somebody that we do want to bring in, but after the U.S. Department of Education has been seen a ton of cuts by the Trump administration, Supreme Court's decision just this Monday lifted an injunction against the Trump administration's efforts, as I just talked about, to gut the agency, took that first step in that direction. And it could have that ripple effect to students and obviously other institutions across the country. So we want to bring in Maribel Gonzalez, who is an expert with CNN on this. Maribel, this is something we have never really seen before. So let's talk about that ruling and the Supreme Court in and of itself regarding the Department of Education. How is this decision going to impact schools and students really across our country?
Yeah, hi, Colin. Well, it will have a lot of impacts. First, at the level of the employees of the Department of Education, this Supreme Court ruling will now allow the layoff of about half of the workforce at the Department of Education. That's about 1,300 people. And then also students. We know that the Department of Education is in charge of distributing tens of billions of dollars to schools and programs throughout the country. Some of those schools, specifically, that will be most affected are those schools that have at least 40% of their students living in low-income households. Those are called Title I schools, and then also IDEA programs. Those programs are tailored to fit the needs of students with disabilities.
Really going to impact some of our most vulnerable communities, it seems like. So I have to ask this. Is this legally possible? So many people have questioned this. And obviously now with the Supreme Court ruling, this has been a campaign promise. We saw this early on before the president was elected, and it seems obviously he's following through on this. So is this legal?
So, yes, but he cannot completely dismantle the department or get rid of it entirely without an act of Congress. So we know that this is not new. There's been several administrations that have called for changes and even elimination of the Department of Education. However, those moves have not bode over well in Congress. They have not received that support. And even if the president succeeds at dismantling the programs or the Department of Education, it's still very possible that some of the funding that the Department of Education oversaw and the programs will just be distributed and shifted towards other agencies as well.
Well said, and great information to know. I want to go back to that impact because a lot of students in this area, in fact, here in North Carolina, we actually just did a story about CMS, one of the largest school districts in North Carolina and Charlotte, suing the Trump administration to get $12 million to fund certain programs. Obviously, the state's governor, Josh Stein, also calling on Congress and the administration to release certain funds for obviously schools here in North Carolina. So what other impacts or recent changes could we potentially start to see? I mean, could schools start to close? I'm sure teachers are looking at this and wondering, will salaries be paid out? What are you looking at in terms of the fallout from this?
Yeah, so Colin, we're already starting to see some summer programs and language programs struggling to keep their doors open because aside from this ruling, we also know that there are about $7 billion in educational grant money that has been frozen by the Department of Education. Earlier this month, we know that several Democratic states are now suing the Trump administration in their bid to unfreeze some of those funds. But we want to get back to North Carolina and South Carolina. The Carolinas will be affected. We did a little bit of research, and according to the National Center for Education Statistics, we talked about those Title I schools. Those are schools where at least 40% of the student population is living under poverty. There are about 2,166 of those Title I schools in North Carolina and 632 eligible public schools. So that's around 2,700, a little more than that, schools across the Carolinas that could see an impact from a cut in funding towards those schools. And then also in North Carolina, there are about 203,000 children identified as children with disabilities, according to nonprofit Public Schools First data. So we're talking about thousands of students that could see a reduction in their funds for their programs. It definitely has a widespread effect. And we've heard from the Department of Education employees who say they worry they cannot fulfill their claims with half the number of staff.
astonishing numbers. I think a lot of folks are just waiting for the other shoe to drop and to kind of see what's next. Maribel Gonzalez with CNN, the expert in the field, and we appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Maribel.